Picture this. It's October 14th, 1912, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The night is cold and dark. Outside a hotel, hundreds of people are packed together, waiting. They're all here to see one man, Theodore Roosevelt, the bull moose himself. But in just a few seconds, everything is about to change. A gunshot will ring out, blood will spill. And what happens next? Well, that's a story so crazy, so unbelievable, that if someone told it to you without proof, you'd think they were lying. This is the true story of the night Teddy Roosevelt was shot in the chest and then talked for 90 minutes straight. Let's go back to that night. The year is 1912. Theodore Roosevelt is 53 years old. He's already been president once. He left office back in 1909. But now, he wants it back. Here's the thing, though. His own party, the Republicans, they don't want him. They picked William Howard Taft instead. Taft was actually Roosevelt's hand-picked successor, his friend. But Roosevelt is disappointed in him. Really disappointed. So Roosevelt does something wild. He forms his own party, the National Progressive Party. But everyone calls it something else, the Bull Moose Party. Why? Because Roosevelt himself said he felt as strong as a bull moose. The name stuck. His supporters would literally make moose calls at his rallies. They sang songs like, "Oh, you beautiful moose." I'm not making this up.
Roosevelt is campaigning hard, really hard. He's visiting 38 states, more than any of his opponents. On October 14th alone, he starts his day in Chicago, goes to Racine, Wisconsin, and then heads to Milwaukee. The man is exhausted. His voice is nearly gone, but he keeps pushing. Why? Because he believes in something. He believes in change, workers' rights, women getting the vote, fairness. These are radical ideas in 1912, and they make him enemies, serious enemies. In fact, Roosevelt has been getting threats throughout his campaign, death threats. At one stop, someone actually attacked him, and Roosevelt fought them off using jujitsu moves. Yes, the former president knew jujitsu. But tonight in Milwaukee? Tonight is different. It's just after 8 p.m. Roosevelt is at the Hotel Gilpatrick on 3rd Street. He's at dinner. Now it's time to head to the Milwaukee Auditorium, just 4 blocks away. There's a huge crowd waiting to hear him speak. The Milwaukee police are there. Roosevelt's bodyguards are there. Everyone's trying to keep him safe. But here's the problem with crowds. They're unpredictable. And in those crowds, anyone could be hiding. Roosevelt walks out of the hotel lobby. The crowd erupts. People are cheering, waving, pushing forward to see him. A pathway opens up to his car, an open-topped automobile. No roof, no protection. Roosevelt climbs into the back seat. He's holding something in his jacket pocket, a 50-page speech folded in half. It's titled, "Progressive Cause Greater Than Any Individual." He's also got his steel eyeglass case in the same pocket. He stands up in the back of the car. He waves his hat to the crowd with his right hand. The people go wild. And then, in that exact moment, a man standing just 5 to 7 feet away pulls out a gun. A .38 caliber Colt revolver. He aims it directly at Roosevelt's heart and fires. Bang! The sound echoes through the street. People scream. For a split second, everything stops. Roosevelt doesn't fall. He barely moves. He shows no pain, no panic. But the bullet hit him. It went right into his chest. Immediately, chaos breaks loose. Roosevelt's secretary, Albert Martin, who's standing right next to him, jumps on the shooter. Captain A.O. Girard jumps from the front seat. They tackle a man, wrestling the gun away from him. The crowd realizes what just happened, and they go absolutely crazy. People are shouting, "Kill him!" They're raining blows on the shooter. This mob is about to tear this man apart. But then something incredible happens. Roosevelt, the man who was just shot, yells out, "Don't hurt him! Bring him here! I want to see him!" The crowd stops. They listen to him. Can you imagine?
The guy just took a bullet and he's protecting his would-be killer from being lynched. Roosevelt looks at the shooter and asks, "What did you do it for?" The man doesn't answer. He just stares. Roosevelt shakes his head. "Oh, what's the use? Turn him over to the police." The shooter's name is John Schrank. He's a former saloon keeper from New York, and he's been following Roosevelt for weeks, from New Orleans all the way to Milwaukee. He's been waiting for this moment. But right now, nobody's thinking about Schrank. Everyone's looking at Roosevelt. Someone says, "Get him to the hospital, now!" But Roosevelt? He reaches inside his coat, he feels around, then he does something that shows you exactly what kind of man he is. He puts a finger to his lips. Not to tell people to be quiet, no. He's checking if there's blood coming from his mouth. You see, Roosevelt had been a hunter, a cowboy, an officer in the Spanish-American War. He knows that if you're coughing blood, the bullet hit your lung. And if it hit your lung, you're in serious trouble. He pulls his finger back. No blood. "I'm fine. I'm not going to the hospital. Take me to the auditorium. I have a speech to give." His people think he's lost his mind. They're begging him, "Sir, you've been shot. You need a doctor." Roosevelt won't hear it. "I am going to drive to the hall and deliver my speech." And just like that, the car starts moving toward the auditorium. When Roosevelt arrives at the Milwaukee auditorium, 3 doctors are backstage. They examine him quickly. They see it, a dime-sized hole in his chest, below his right nipple. There's a huge stain spreading across his white shirt. It's bright red. Blood. The doctors are shocked. You cannot go out there. But Roosevelt asks for just one thing, a clean handkerchief to cover the wound. Then he walks toward the stage. Meanwhile, out in the auditorium, the crowd has no idea what happened. They're waiting for Roosevelt to appear. One of his bodyguards walks on stage, Henry Cocham's. He's supposed to introduce Roosevelt, but his hands are shaking, his voice is trembling. "I have something to tell you," Cocham says, "and I hope you will receive the news with calmness." The entire auditorium goes silent. You could hear a pin drop. "Colonel Roosevelt has been shot. He is wounded." The crowd explodes. People are screaming. Some are crying. Others are rushing toward the stage to see if it's true. And then Roosevelt himself walks out. The crowd sees him, pale, unsteady, but standing. Roosevelt walks to the edge of the platform. He unbuttons his vest. He shows them his blood-soaked shirt. The gasps echo through the building. Then he pulls out his speech from his jacket pocket, and when he holds it up, everyone can see it. 2 big bullet holes blown clean through all 50 pages. Roosevelt begins to speak. "Friends, I shall ask you to be as quiet as possible." The crowd immediately goes silent. "I don't know whether you fully understand that I have just been shot." You can hear the shock ripple through the room. "But it takes more than that to kill a bull moose." The crowd roars. They can't believe what they're seeing. This man was just shot, and he's standing here making jokes? Roosevelt continues. "Fortunately, I had my manuscript, so you see, I was going to make a long speech, and there is a bullet. There is where the bullet went through, and it probably saved me from it going into my heart. The bullet is in me now, so I cannot make a very long speech, but I will try my best." Someone in the crowd yells, "Fake!" They think it's a political stunt. Roosevelt just points to his shirt, points to the bullet holes in his speech. The blood is real. The holes are real. This is happening. And then he begins. For the next 90 minutes, Theodore Roosevelt delivers his speech with a bullet lodged in his chest. His voice gets quieter as he goes on. His breathing gets shorter, but he doesn't stop.
He talks about his progressive party. He talks about how they're fighting for all Americans, no matter where they were born or what religion they practice. He talks about workers' rights and fairness. He also says something chilling. He tells the crowd that the angry political rhetoric in this campaign, all the name-calling, all the hatred, that's what led to this shooting. He warns them, if the government doesn't take care of all its people, rich and poor, then violence like this will become normal, common, expected. When that day comes, Roosevelt says, the most awful passions will be let loose, and it will be an ill day for our country. His aides are freaking out. They keep trying to get him to stop. Multiple times, people approach the podium, ready to catch him if he collapses. Roosevelt glares at them each time. About half an hour in, one of his campaign managers walks up and puts his hand on his arm. Roosevelt looks right at him and says to the crowd, "My friends are a little more nervous than I am. Don't you waste any sympathy on me. I have had an A1 time in life, and I am having it now."
Then he keeps talking for another 50 minutes. He criticizes his opponent, Woodrow Wilson, for not doing enough about big corporations and trusts. He talks about his vision for America. He tells them to vote not for him as a person, but for the ideas he represents. "I cannot tell you of what infinitesimal importance I regard this incident," Roosevelt says, "as compared with the great issues at stake in this campaign." Think about that. He's standing there with a bullet in his chest, bleeding, and he's saying, "This doesn't matter. The ideas matter." Finally, after an hour and a half, Roosevelt finishes his speech. He drops the last page. He looks briefly at the cheering crowd. Then he calmly walks off stage and into a waiting car. Roosevelt is rushed to a Milwaukee hospital. X-rays show exactly what happened. The bullet had traveled through his steel eyeglass case, then through all 50 pages of his folded speech. By the time it hit his body, it had slowed down just enough. The bullet lodged against Roosevelt's fourth right rib. It was on an upward path to his heart. If it hadn't been for that eyeglass case and that thick speech in his pocket, Theodore Roosevelt would have died on that street. The doctors have a choice: try to remove the bullet or leave it in. They decide it's safer to leave it. Too risky to operate. So for the rest of his life, 7 more years, Theodore Roosevelt carried that bullet in his chest. He would later write to a friend, "I do not mind it any more than if it were in my waistcoat pocket." As for the shooter, John Schrank, he told the police he opposed Roosevelt running for a third term. But there was more to it. Schrank claimed that the ghost of President William McKinley had visited him in a dream. McKinley, who was assassinated in 1901, supposedly told Schrank to avenge his death by killing Roosevelt. Psychiatrists examined Schrank. They declared him insane. He was committed to the Central State Mental Hospital in Wisconsin in 1914. He stayed there for 29 years, until he died in 1943. Both of Roosevelt's opponents, William Howard Taft and Woodrow Wilson, immediately suspended their campaigns when they heard about the shooting. They refused to campaign until Roosevelt recovered and could resume his own campaign. Roosevelt was back on the campaign trail just 1 week before Election Day. But despite everything, despite his courage, his passion, his incredible resilience, he lost the election. Woodrow Wilson won. Roosevelt came in second, actually beating Taft. To this day, he received more votes than any third-party candidate in American history. But he didn't become president again.
So why did Roosevelt do it? Why give a speech with a bullet in your chest? Later, when people asked him, Roosevelt explained it simply. He had been expecting an assassination attempt for years. It didn't surprise him. And once it happened, once he knew he wasn't going to die right there, he had a job to do. He had a message to deliver, ideas to share, a cause bigger than himself. That's what his speech was titled, remember? Progressive cause greater than any individual. And that night in Milwaukee, bleeding and wounded, Theodore Roosevelt proved he meant every word. It takes more than a bullet to kill a bull moose, but it also takes a certain kind of person to stand up after being shot and say, "I have a speech to give." Theodore Roosevelt was that kind of person.